serious today, y'all.
Yeah.
So just close your eyes. Allow yourself to feel the vibration. Take a deep breath and reset. Open your eyes in gratitude. All right. How are you feeling?
I am well, ready for this one.
Reset.
Absolutely, I'm reset and ready to rock. I am sharing our link on the page. Everybody can jump in as well.
Awesome.
Go for it.
Okay. So the way that I definitely want to start is by saying that the quote that I was given this morning was, "Don't allow your unhealed internal world bully your external perspective of the beauty that's currently present." Let me say that again. Don't allow your unhealed internal world bully your external perspective of the beauty currently present. Our perspectives are everything, but a lot of what we see and internalize is subconscious. Like, most of your behaviors come from a subconscious place, so if you don't really understand what lives there, how can you really, like, how can you really govern your life or govern your own behavior, govern your thoughts? Everything is pretty much unregulated, and it's chaotic. And that's how it shows up in your projection of your own life. I always call it a projection because I feel like all of that is, kind of sitting here. And so many of us are in our heads. And whenever you go to the movies, the source of it was from that projector screen, right? And it projected whatever was on that reel, projected onto that screen.
Yeah.
So when we think of our internal selves, what happens when that reel gets sticky because that person that was controlling it was out there eating and not taking care of it? What happens if the temperature gets too hot and it starts to melt? What does that projection look like? What happens when all these things start to happen to this reel that we're playing? Because that's where our trauma lies, are in the imperfect places on that reel that kind of see. So I want to start this session off by saying I don't want to call it trauma anymore. I'm tired of that word. That word is traumatic, okay? I want to call it distortion. It's a distortion. It's just that, it's the glitch. It's a distortion. So everything that foundationally is who you are in this moment, it can be made up of either what you grasp onto. So some of us live intuitively. I strive to. That's how I move, is by intuition, because I know that my intuition is a part of my heart and my soul. But in order to get to that place, I had to heal a whole lot of distortions, belief systems, lack of boundaries, lack of self-love, guilt, shame, embarrassment, failures, breakdowns, failed marriages, just a lot of things that, happen, and sometimes we never tell anyone. And sometimes we do, and we regret we told them. And sometimes we just regret that it happened altogether. Okay? But I don't feel like we should stay in that place. So I think the first step towards getting out of all of that. So my second quote that I was given to by Spirit this morning was, if you don't learn, you loop.
Period. You don't know how else you can say
If
that.
you don't learn, you loop. So they may be different people. It may look like a different experience or simulation. No, it's the same one, because the universe has a saying where it has to trust you, that you trust yourself and you trust it to be able to level you up and give you more stewardship over more of whatever it is that you're manifesting in your life, right? So if you don't learn those lessons, then that's almost like you not doing your work or whatever and expecting to go to the next grade. So you're kind of looping. But the scary part is, how many of us are looping as adults and we're still like in kinder? Like, it's funny, where we're going today, if you haven't figured it out yet, our rabbit hole, is the inner child. Because the way that I'm able to, I'm just going to let you in on a secret, the way that I'm able to smile at folks when they're acting nasty and just kind of just be like, okay, whatever. It's not apathy. Actually, it's empathy, because most of what I see are really, really hurt adults that are hurt children. I see hurt children. I see people as their child self, because I just love children. So I've been sent by the children. Okay. So whenever I see people, I see children. So I can see the hurt in them as a child. So it's really hard to be really mad or angry at a child
Yeah.
about anything that they do. About we tend to have more compassion and more room in our hearts for children, and for the child's heart. Um, but we don't practice that. As we get a certain age, we feel like you should know. But what about those that, because our very society that we live in is punitive. They think you should be punished when you do something, right? So where's the rehabilitation in that? How many of us have been running around here this whole time, like unrehabilitated, like hurt children, and trying to live adult lives? Yeah, you got bills, yeah, you got careers and jobs or whatever, but like, are you acknowledging that part of yourself that really wants to have like a temper tantrum in this moment? Because whatever you don't deal with internally is
Right.
going to show up and be another
That's a,
embarrassment or
that,
shame if you don't deal with that.
now that's a word, Nikki, right there. It's really
It
coming
will
up.
show up. It will
It's
start
going to
oozing
come
and
up.
oozing in everything you thought. Like, you know, you don't get to hide it. It shows up. Whatever is within us actually beams outside of us. So it's like when I try to tell, it's funny because I'll go out and I'm super intuitive and people know that I am, and they don't know me and I don't know them. And so I internally think that nobody knows, anything about me because I don't know who they are. But it's funny that we can always see, it's obvious to us about other people, but whenever we look at ourselves, there's that one blind spot that kind of makes it a little murky and causes us to have identity crises even about ourselves. And we're the only ones who have been us for all this time, and we still kind of like fumbling through it. So that's why I'm grateful for friends like you and all the, soul tribe around me to hit those blind spots. And so we went all the way around the bend just to say, today we are going to be talking about ACEs. So ACEs, it's ACE. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And so my lovely sister and I, we, in getting ready for this class, we took the quiz ourselves. And so in being able to take that quiz, we were able to see why sometimes, like, because we are both air signs, we are both Libras, we both, of course we're not the same person just because of that, because, the whole natal chart or whatever. But anyways, there are certain things that she may not truly empathize with, not because she doesn't care. It's just sometimes we have a different version of knowing just from our experiences. But the way that we're able to transmute or the way that we don't transmute whatever that experience is funnels into what the outcomes are. So that's what the adverse childhood experiences are. Is like, these are things they ask you questions about abuse and about some of the experiences that you may have had before you turned 18. And it puts it in perspective. So I want us to come into this room, first of all, open. And I feel like this is the best way to open up in transparency and true authenticity. And the most important is compassion for yourself, right? Like, know where you're coming from. That way you can look and be like, yo, I had almost forgot about that until she asked that question, but look at where I am now and look at how high my number is, and then compare that to really look at how your status is, like, mentally, spiritually, and physically, because those are where it normally manifests. That energy is going to go somewhere because energy is never destroyed, right? So you had these experiences, it created an energy, an emotion, a feeling. Depending on how you channeled that is going to depend on your current experience now. And even though you may have channeled that, you said, against all odds, they said I wasn't going to be anything and I wasn't going to do anything. And some of us are able to, kind of turn that egg on its side or whatever and just be like, no, I'm going to do these things or whatever, and you can't tell me. And it pushes us into greatness and success. But we also have to understand that the level of resilience is different for everyone. The composition of that is different for everyone. And that, everyone's soul has a different purpose or whatever. So they're going to be vibrating on different frequencies just because that's what they're supposed to be doing in their own evolution individually. So this whole thing of like the collective all, always being at the same level, I've let go of that too, because we're all connected in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to deal with the distortions within our own projections so that we don't, because what happens is when you don't deal with the projections in your own house, then when your house gets close to mine, you mess mine up. I've been in cars where, like, my radio, it's just like, the random thing and stuff, I'm not listening to the radio, I'm listening to the Spotify, but for whatever reason, I can intuitively sense what's going on with them because the song will change, and I'd be like, girl, is this your projection? Like, and I'm around people, and that's kind of what it is. Even if you notice, if you hang out with somebody or whatever, like your experience maybe going into a particular store is what it is, but if you go in with somebody else, I want you to notice the change. Maybe sometimes it doesn't change because I've been with people who are just like me and I'm like, oh my God, our world is beautiful. It's great. Like, your projection really goes in with mine. But sometimes we can get with people and be like, woo, whoa,
Yeah.
it's back in here. Like,
Yeah.
what happened to the shift? And it'll shift. So instead of getting angry or mad or irritated or frustrated and lacking empathy, our role here is to show you tools just to be able to shift whatever that is. Because sometimes we all have funky projections. I'm not saying mine is beautiful all the time. It's not. When I get into a tizzy, I am in there and I'm locked in, okay? But I don't stay there for long, and that's what's good for my body, is that I don't stay there for long. That's what's good for everyone's body, is that we find a way to release all of this. So let's go on and get into the quiz. So I gotta share my
Yes,
screen, huh?
ma'am.
Share my screen. Okay, can I pick tabs? Oh. Okay. Um. Okay. Share. Okay. Can you see this?
Yep, I got it.
Boom. Okay. So we're going to take the what's your ACE score. So let's start the quiz. And what I want you to do, I know I didn't say this before I brought it up, but we are going to be taking a quiz. And so get out a pencil and paper, and I want you to just score it. So for every question that you answer yes to, you're going to give yourself a point. Okay? If it doesn't apply to you, it's 0 points. Okay? So let's do this together. Okay. So, question 1 of 10. Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you? Or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? So you answer yes. If there's yes, you give yourself a point. If it's no, give yourself a 0 for number 1. And I'm just going to say yes for all of these. I'm not answering like for me. I've already done
Right.
that. But I do think that we can come to a space or whatever within the group where we're like, intimately sharing. But yeah, your number is very exclusive to you and it's sacred, right?
Correct.
So question 2 of 10, before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you? Or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? Okay, so if that was your experience, you give yourself a point. If it was not, gratefully give yourself a 0. Question number 3. Before your 18th birthday, did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondle you, or have you touched their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you? If your answer is yes, give yourself a point. If no, thankfully, no points. Question number 4. Before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? So how does that resonate with you? Assess your points.
And Nick,
Number
I'm
5.
sorry, I don't want
Yes,
to
baby.
interrupt, but I want everybody to take a moment as we're going through this and remember that there is no judgment. This zone is completely free of judgment. These answers are yours. We're not going to talk about these today. If we do, it'll
Mm-mm.
be later on, long
Yeah.
down the line. But this is something we want you to take and you assess yourself. And you'll see why when we go, as Nikki digs deeper into the conversation. But this is not to be for you to feel bad or be embarrassed about the things that have happened. What we want you to do is get enlightenment and figure out how these things affect where you are now. So please, please, please.
As a person and as a
Right.
parent, because as we get deeper in, I mean, I will share my experiences, not necessarily based on my score. Well, yeah, based on my score, but arbitrarily because I'm not going to give my score out. But with some of the experiences that we do experience, like many of those, you're born with DNA,
Right.
right? So in your DNA, there's
Correct.
some distortion. All of us have distortion in our DNA, so it's up to us to heal those parts of our DNA to be able to push forth a more enlightened legacy of ourselves. We should all have, our children should be 2.0 of us and whomever, we have the children with. They should be our 2.0s, and they should always upgrade with every generation. But it's going to take us asking these hard questions and actually engaging with ourselves to figure out why our projection, why it's fuzzy, why it's cracked, why you feel broken, why you feel sad, lonely, depressed, anxious. Go down the line. These are the roots. And I always, like, whenever I talk to my clients, I always tell them, I think of everything as a garden. Even when I do Reiki energy healing sessions, it's a garden. I feel thorns, I feel grass, I feel warmth. Okay? It's a sunny day outside gardening. That's what healing looks like for me. And so if you think of it in that way, What happens when the weeds get out of control? And furthermore, what happens if you just feel like, just moving to another place or changing another spouse is going to be able to heal like what's at the roots of those weeds? If you're just chopping off and you're just mowing the lawn, that's not going to do it. A good gardener makes sure that they are able to wet the ground first. So that's what we're doing right now. We're wetting this ground, and it doesn't feel good. Everybody doesn't like the rain, but it's necessary, right? So this is our rainstorm. This is the thunderstorm that we're going to have in the very beginning of our sessions, so that we can be closer to getting to the rainbow at the end. So this is your watering. We're watering those weeds so that we can get through these sessions together and pluck them out to create a better us, to be a better whatever it is that you choose to be in your own projection, right? Void of a lot of the distortion, as long as you continue to see and be aware, because once you're aware, then you're responsible, and once you're responsible, you want to be a better steward, and once you're a better steward, it pours into everyone around you. I promise it does. It does. Popularity, listen, high frequency energy is the new wealth, because with that, you get whatever you want. And you don't have to do it in a way that is malicious, where it's egotistical, where you're like, you're having to compromise yourself, or that you have to be compromised in order to get there. High frequency, vibrational energy is the new wealth. How do you get there? We remove the distortion, because every time you remove something, you become lighter.
Yeah.
It's like putting helium in a balloon. Every time you remove something, you detach those cords, you get lighter, and you're like those helium balloons. And at that point, you're just at a moment. Everything that is weighing you down, you cut it off. You're like a hot air balloon, babe.
That's it. That's real.
So that's what we're trying to do. So if we're talking about a hot air balloon, because I'm such an imagery visual person, and I do meditation if you can't tell. So if you can just envision like a hot air balloon, and that you got those saddlebags on the side and they are anchoring you to the ground. What are they? Identify them. That's not allowing you to get to the sky where you belong. What are the saddlebags? They all have names. They all have people and situations attached to them. But you know what else they are? They are also some of the health issues that we have, some of the mental health issues that we have, some of our disbeliefs or foundational issues in our own spirituality that we have. That's the heaviness that keeps you from being able to jump in that hot air balloon and go for what you know. So as we water and we take out the roots, that's just like, being able to figure out how to get those saddlebags back into the hot air balloon in a way that still allows because it's not that we're just trying to cut and chop everything off. I think that every experience, when I look back, I just started laughing and I cried tears of joy, because it feels so good to understand why you had to do that, why you had to go through that, why you had to experience that, why was it that person, why, and you do all these whys. But when you see the big picture and how that couldn't happen without that experience, no matter how horrible in your perception you thought it was, it is always for your good. And that's what makes you fly and float, is in a space of gratitude, right? That's the wind that's making that hot air balloon get up in the air. But those saddlebags are the opposite of gratitude. So they're just up there having a fight, trying to figure out who's going to win. So we want you to win. We want the air of gratitude to take your hot air balloon where it needs to go, because your babies are going to benefit from that. So if I'm sent from the children, I got to be in a space where I'm talking to myself and other people about doing this, so that we see a better world on this planet. Because it starts with us. We've got to do a better job of managing ourselves, so that way we can just love on and have compassion for other people and deal with people and receive people where they are. So that's another part of this, is that we're able to receive you where you are. We want you to be able to receive you where you are, and also have the empathy that when somebody else is coming from a different perspective, that there is a spectrum here from 1 to 10. There's 10 questions. So if you look at somebody who may be like a 2 or 3 and you're like a 9 or 10, y'all's perspectives may not always jive, but there always has to be a spirit of respect, empathy, and compassion to let people be who they are and allow them to work through that. And there's no disrespect in this group. There's only, just conversation and discussion. And I will give you a hint. Shawana and I found out that we're on opposite sides of the spectrum. Not by much, but by enough to where it's noticeable. But I think that is why it's so incredibly beautiful that we're working together and that we're, co-hosting this together, because then together we're capturing the spectrum together. There's not just one person who has one specific no. It's to where we can capture the whole spectrum and give it a big hug to where, we're still all coexisting together, because that is a possibility. And we're going to prove that it is, because we're going to heal together. Okay, thank you for that, Shawana, because I think that going in halfway, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to talk about this no more.
Right.
Don't check out on yourself. Don't check out on yourself. Don't. Come on, let's keep going. So question 5 of 10. Before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you? Or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if you needed it? So again, giving yourself a point if that was what resonates with your childhood experiences before 18, and gratefully no points if that was not your experience. Question 6. Before your 18th birthday, was a biological parent ever lost to you through divorce, abandonment, or other reason? I'm about to put this song back on. I understand why this was playing in the background before. Ooh, just take a deep breath. We're almost there. I've been listening to this song all morning. It's Doomed by Moses Sumney. From the Slim and Queen and Slim.
Yep.
It's been playing on repeat. So breathe through it, y'all. So question number 7. Before your 18th birthday, was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes, often, or very often, kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes, or threatened with a gun or knife? Just breathe. Okay, number 8. Before your 18th birthday, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs? Breathe. Number 9, before your 18th birthday, was a household member depressed or mentally ill? Or did a household member attempt suicide? Breathe. And last question, before your 18th birthday, did a household member go to prison? Okay. Okay, so let's just have a session of breathing. Let's give it 30 seconds. Self a sensory break. release however it
Yeah.
does. It's okay. Yawning, tears, gas, stretching, whatever it takes. Okay, now we're back together. Okay, so that's the reason why we introduce things like that, because that's a good tool just to kind of get you on frequency, because these are conversations that we have to have, but we don't have to feel all of that other energy associated with it. We don't have to stay in that place. So as we continue to go on, I encourage you just to be an observer. So don't be attached. I want you to just think that like you're outside of yourself watching yourself, okay? So I want you to just come out of yourself and just be a distant observer of what is going on. That way you don't get so engulfed in it that you're not able to keep on resuming. And if you need to watch this, in parts and pieces, I encourage you to do that too. Let yourself get through it, whatever it takes just to get through it. We empathize with you because this is pretty heavy, but this is also incredibly necessary if we're going to keep
That's
going on in the direction that we all set out to do. We got to be better people for ourselves first, but definitely for our children. Our children are depending on us to get this right. So these are the three types of ACEs. So you have abuse, neglect, and household function. So abuse, it could be physical, it could be emotional or sexual. And as far as neglect, it could be that you didn't have the emotional your parents may not have had the emotional awareness to be able to be emotionally there for you, or physically maybe they weren't physically there for you because maybe your mama had to work all the time, or some other circumstances, right? What about the household dysfunction? When you have incarcerated relatives, how does that affect the rest of the family? When there's somebody in the family that has untreated or unrehabilitated distortions, how does that affect and influence everyone else, especially with whatever role they serve in the family? So it's really hard to have a parent that is the higher hierarchy of the household, and they're unable to mentally cope with whatever is going on. They're unable to regulate. They're unable to get past whatever that is. And so many of them, many people, we find that, or that I found. Let me speak for myself. That I found that struggle with this were also victims of the same or similar whenever they were young. So it's like we have, like I said, a whole bunch of children walking around just kind of stuck in this arrested development space, just trying to figure it out, and trying to figure it out only to the extent that they've been able to allow themselves to be aware of what had actually happened to be able to even deal with it. So there's a lot of there's a lack of
yeah.
awareness. That's why I say we just want to meet everybody where they are, because for many, they're just not even aware. A lot of us have repressed and suppressed so much. Like I'll be honest, I don't really remember a whole lot of my childhood. I don't. I had this thing where, and it doesn't make my mom a bad mom. Like, I love my mom, and I tell her every day, I am so glad that you are my mom, because I needed this
Right.
track. Like, she provided, like, we choose our parents. Let me just say that. We choose our parents. So your babies chose you because they knew that you were going to be committed and get it right, okay? They choose us, and we chose ours. So whenever you're looking at your situation or whatever, it does not mean that your baby needs to go through the same thing to be the resilience version of you.
That's right.
No, they're here to be them. You got to get over yourself in order for them to be who they need to be. Ain't got shit to
That's
do
right.
with you. You are the passageway for them to get here. Now you get your act together so that you can be a good steward. So that's how I look at myself. Like, am I being a good steward over this beautiful soul that I've been given? My baby is beautiful. Like, I'm in love with her. I'm a fan. I be calling her, I'm that parent. I just think that she just hung the moon. But at the same time, whenever I see distorted features in her, I have to
Mm-hmm.
take ownership of that, because it's not cute whenever you see a reflection of who you are that hasn't been tapped into or hasn't been
Absolutely.
rehabilitated. That's not a cute thing. Okay. So that's where we're talking about household dysfunctions, things like that, substance abuse, divorce. Divorce has infiltrated so many in our society, because that separation, that transition, my first traumatic experience was whenever I was that young. Well, I wouldn't say that was my first, but it was one of them. Where, whenever my parents didn't make it, like that shattered my world. It was like, wait, mommy and daddy ain't gonna be together? Like, y'all not gonna try harder? Like, what? Where are you going? Wait, you marrying somebody else? You marrying somebody else? What is wrong with you guys? And as a child, I just remember feeling that way. And so when I had to get my own divorce, like, I understood how my daughter felt. I was like, I know, we fucked up. I'm
My
so
bad.
sorry. Like,
Yep.
yeah. I know, like but I had the empathy. I knew, because I did it myself. But at the same time, during that time, I had to get real serious about my inner child stuff, because this is now a loop. I had to acknowledge, oh, honey, you're in a loop. This looks familiar. And guess who's having to take the brunt of this loop?
Right.
This little baby here. Yeah, you messed up. You were out of alignment. You were misaligned. You made sad choices, or you made the best choice for your situation or whatever. But now we're here. And this is what's affecting this baby.
Right.
So what do we need to get straight in my own distortion, my own experiences, my own unrehabilitated version of this? What do I need to get over in order to push through and be a better steward for my baby? Because she deserves better. She chose me. She deserves better. She could have chose anybody, but she chose you. They chose you.
And I think the part we need to remember in all of this, when you said the part about it being a loop, a lot of our actions are a loop. A lot of the things that we find ourselves doing, if you sit down and talk to your parents or your grandparents or anybody in your family, you can figure out that you're repeating a cycle that you saw, you heard, or you felt. And the quicker the deeper we dive in this thing and start figuring out what pieces are that you're repeating that you don't necessarily like, but you never acknowledge or never realize were even there. You can see transitions in your children, and so they don't repeat those same cycles. That's the goal. That's my goal as a parent. I'm not gonna make it general. It's mine.
Absolutely. That's mine too. I just want that 2.0 version of,
I want to make sure that I have addressed everything that's within me that needs to be corrected, so that my kids don't repeat the same cycle. Don't get it twisted. Some of our cycles are great. Some of them are wonderful. Some things we do that we've seen or heard or been instructed to do, they are amazing. And when our kids repeat them, you're like, oh my gosh, they got it. And that's wonderful. There are some things that we do that are detrimental to ourselves, and we've yet to acknowledge that those things have to be changed.
Absolutely.
And again, I'll say the same thing I said in last week's class. While our job here is not to tell you how to parent, our request here is, when you're here, is to give you that you gain new perspective on how to deal with things. That's what we're trying to give you. And so, yeah, that whole loop thing, that kind of hit me right there, Nikki. I like that. Yeah.
Man, it's just my own experience, right? Like, any situation, you can take any situation, whether it's parenting or relationships with, any type of relationships, any type of anything,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is massive right here.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, so let's talk about like how those structures, then this is the part that I talked about, whenever it starts to ooze into like those components of your life that are most important to you. So this is how a lot of us deal with it, myself included. Like, these are some of the things that come up. So some of us get slothful, a lack of physical activity. You just don't feel like it. You don't feel like doing anything. Smoking. Absolutely. Alcoholism, drug use, missing work, and severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, STDs, heart disease, cancer, stroke, COPD, broken bones. So all of these things are, and more. And more. There's always a way to find a good avoidance strategy or a way to escape. Mine, I was really blessed in that. Like, I do have some other pretty, I'll call them destructive. But I try to be purposeful though with what those things are, because I feel like that anything in excess is like a problem. So I feel like it's okay to find things to escape from reality, but how long are you going to stay in escape mode? And how consistently are you going to engage in that behavior? And is that behavior something that if somebody else found out about that behavior, would you be shameful about it? Or would you be able to understand why it is a staple of what needs to be a part of your life for you to be more evenly
Yeah.
balanced? Okay, 'cause people see that I smoke. Let me just call it on myself. Like, I smoke cigars. I love it. I don't smoke like all day long, but it's something that brings me back to my breath. And the kind that I get are like, they have a sensory component to them. So not only am I getting the breath, but whenever I lick my lips, it tastes like cherry.
Hey.
And that's an escape, a short escape to ground myself because I'm an air sign. So it's just something that just kind of allows me to ground. And so, if I do it too much, will it be harmful? Absolutely. So there needs to be, some balance in how consistently I do that rather than just going and just meditating and just taking deep breaths without needing that. So that's usually after I finish a big project or something like that, or, certain times of the day just to kind of ground myself out. I might go out there and, just go at it. But um, I think it's just to the extent because even with missed work, I kind of hesitated because I believe in self-care and mental
Yeah.
health days
Yeah.
a lot. So I just think it's to the extent that you use whatever that escape is to, but when we're talking about physical and mental health, to me, I feel like the very definition of disease is dis-ease. So again, going back to those roots of why, what is at the root? What is keeping you out of a stream of ease? Is it living in the body? Is it living
Mm.
in the mind? Is it living in the spirit? Like, where is that disease at? And can you identify it? And do you have a beautiful, holistic, or way to deal with it, or are you dealing with it in a way that is harmful to yourself and others? And that's really just the distinguishing part between it, because I just believe for everything there's duality, and for everything we just need to create harmony, right? So that is the I'll go on and come off of sharing my screen because I feel like now
Yeah.
it's discussion time, right? So let me stop sharing. Okay. Hi.
Yeah.
I'm back. I need to go get my cord. Okay. Let me still wait.
So while Nikki goes to get her cord, I'd really like to, of course, we'll share this video and then we want to get your feedback and see where you are. And of course, I'll remind you, you can contact us either in the group, on the page, or in our inboxes with any questions or any conversation you'd like to have in regards to your quiz results or just in general, something you want to talk about. Feel free to shoot us a message. We're both pretty accessible, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. But we definitely want to create this community and keep this conversation going because it's important, and we want to make sure that you guys know that we're here. Nikki's back.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Yeah, what are our next steps?
Is there anything that you wanted to share from that whole presentation from the
So I
end?
think that the biggest thing for me was realizing that when I did the quiz with you last week, I think for me it was understanding that some of us, and I know some people have taken this quiz today, but my perspective was a lot of those things didn't apply to me. A lot of those things didn't apply to me. And so for some people, they would feel like my life was not full of, um, I won't say trauma. What was our word we gave it? What was the word? distortion. Would not,
distortions.
they would feel like my life was normal. There weren't any distortions. However, when I sat and looked at them, while majority of those things didn't apply, there was a piece in each of those that applied. Um, and so it may not have been to the magnitude they put on the quiz, but it was something in there, when you're, and I'm just going to give a quick moment of transparency, but when you look at something and you see, like, was there any physical abuse? Was somebody hit? You don't necessarily, I want people to think about it. I had to think about it in a way that there was never anybody that was physically hit, but the emotional piece was there. And so sometimes for some people, the emotional punch is harder than the physical. Have to consider that
Yeah.
while it may not have been, you may not have hit, that might not have been a number on your quiz, but I want you to consider what wasn't written and how it applied to your life as you think about the things. And, it's going to tell you why you are where you are and who you are at this moment, because you've seen those things happen. And it might have been, maybe it never happened. Maybe it just didn't happen. I don't want you to be ashamed of that either. Just because those things didn't happen don't make you, and if you feel like your life, or something is wrong, or you do have a distortion in your life, then that's just what happened. It doesn't mean that, well, those things didn't happen, so I should be normal. What is normal? What is normal? What does that mean? We tend to not use that word in my house because you never know what that really means. My normal versus your normal is two different things. So anywho, I
Totally
just want
different.
people to, my last take on that was that when you read or when you go through the quiz, even if you go back and do it again later, and Nikki can put the link in later. But I want you to kind of consider that if all those things don't apply to you, don't feel like, number one, you are less than because you didn't live that type of life, or none of those things have happened to me. But why is my life not like it should be? Though there are other things, there are other factors, and we'll dive into some other things as we go through this thing, as we go through the group. So I don't want anybody to feel like, well, that doesn't apply, or it was too much of that and too little of this and this, that, and the third. Where you are right now
Yeah.
is where you're supposed to be. What we want to do is help you figure out why you're here and how to get past that. That's the
Hmm.
purpose. So, thank you, Nick. It was good.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Appreciate your openness. That's really dope. So I don't really have anything else. I mean, I just feel like right now, people are projecting.
Yeah.
That's for sure. People are grieving. People are leaving. People are escaping, and people are fearful
Yeah.
right now. So like I said before, I look at the world. I love like art inspired ways of looking at everything because I feel like that's what usually inspires the best art is like how we express our emotions and feelings in the moment. And so for me, what this feels like is Bird Box. And so if we remember like what Bird Box was as a movie, it was kind of like, people losing themselves in a projection of something that was
Yeah.
unhealed, a distortion. And when it spiraled out of control or basically looped out of control, you
Yeah.
saw what happened. But for those that could internally stay in that space, in that serenity space, and know which energies to tap into in order to tap into that greater purpose in their existence and their survival. It's getting pretty primordial out there,
Yeah.
y'all. It's getting real. And those of us who will be the most resilient will be those of us who look within. So don't get caught up in the bird box. Don't get caught up in the fallen either, because um, the energy to kill, and destroy. I mean, both of them are present. There's duality in everything. But I love Fallen with Denzel
Yeah.
Washington or whatever, because that's really how this energy is moving right now. And if you're not careful or you're not present or you're escaping or, you know what I'm saying, don't leave yourself in a space of vulnerability because of a lack of working on the distortion within.
Yep.
Because it doesn't affect just you. This is a
This is a
ripple
huge
effect.
ripple.
If nothing else. Nothing. If we shouldn't have learned anything else in 2020, it was the power of energy exchange
And
and
the
the
ripple
ripple
effect.
effect, boy.
Yeah. We'll put something up on the page and on the group this week about the ripple effect, so y'all can kind of get an understanding about what we're talking about. I really think that that needs to be, we need to consider what that looks like. These the
I
way the
like
world is it's a ripple. Even if you look at
it's like a
if you look at yeah,
hands on the
that's
spider web. It's like the whole spider web
it.
goes.
That's exactly that is it. I mean, even if you
Where happened to the spider web? You feel that?
exactly. That's it. That's it. Yeah. Kind of like when you stand on a trampoline and somebody else stands on the other side and they jump and you feel it, even though you might not move. Same thing. Right.
I'm
I'm
not
not moving,
jumping.
but I'm bouncing. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, to me, yeah,
Energy.
it's all
It's
in that.
all energy.
It's all gonna do the same. We got to pay attention to that. We have to.